Part 62. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 616. But Shan Yu's eyes wandered back and forth between Fantasy Chu Xinyu and the boy. It seems that he accidentally ate something big. The relationship between Chu Xinyu and Gucci. After the man left, the boy stepped forward timidly. Mom. Xiaoqi, come here and let mom hug you. The woman squatted down with a motherly kindness on her face. But there was some kind of struggle on the boy's face for a moment, but soon, it returned to its original state and he walked over obediently. Going out to play again today? Mom, The boy's eyes were a little flustered. Behave since you are young. Children are not allowed to go out. They will be captured by bad guys outside. The woman did not get angry when the boy ran away disobediently. Instead, she gently stroked the boy's face. I won't go far. Other children can also go out and play. There was a hint of sadness and loss on the woman's face. Xiaoqi, don't you listen to your mother? No. Then you can't go out again. The woman picked up the boy and walked to the room. I just came back from outside. I'm covered in dust. I'm going to take a shower. Shan Yu looked at the scene and felt that it was not normal. What normal mother wouldn't even let her child go out? Shan Yu followed. Mom, I can take a bath by myself. It's okay, Mom will help you. When Shan Yu walked in, he heard such a conversation. Gucci became independent at such a young age? However, Chu Xinyu seemed to dote on Gucci. Why would the latter want to kill his mother? But what happened next made Shan Yu a little incomprehensible. As a mother, it is normal to bathe and dress your child. But what Shan Yu saw in his eyes was that the woman frequently touched the boy's delicate skin with her hands, as if with some deliberate intention, and after taking a bath, she directly let the boy go to bed naked. Good boy, it's time to go to sleep. The woman was also lying on the bed, as if to coax the boy to sleep, her hands vaguely reaching into the quilt, stroking the boy's body. Mom. The boy moved his body slightly uncomfortably, and the next second, he was hugged back by the woman. Be good since you were young, and grow up quickly. They look really alike. The woman's murmur hovered in the room, and the boy's face became painful and struggling for a moment, as if he was trying to remember something. Shan Yu's pupils narrowed slightly, and an absurd thought occurred unconsciously. Taking care of him, it's impossible. Behind Shan Yu, without her noticing, the fantasy scene behind her slowly began to distort. A big black face appeared in mid-air, and the big bloody mouth opened slightly. At this time, the boy's body emitted blood-colored gas that was invisible to the naked eye. Once the blood-colored gas was produced, it was quickly sucked clean by the big blood-colored mouth. Then, the big black face disappeared silently, as if it had never appeared. Gucci. Shan Yu couldn't help shouting, walked over, stretched out his hands to pull the woman away, but his hands passed through the woman's body. She alone has no access to the characters in the fantasy world, nor can she interfere with the development of the fantasy world. Shan Yu cursed secretly and took out a blood-stained kitchen knife from the inventory. Then without hesitation, he raised the kitchen knife and chopped it on the woman. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuan-K. Chapter 617. The moment it came into contact with the woman, the blood on the blade suddenly turned red and hot, and it stabbed straight into the woman's abdomen. Ho ho ho. The woman's head suddenly turned 180 degrees, and her originally gentle eyes were hollow, staring straight at Shan Yu. Shan Yu was startled suddenly, came to his senses, angrily stabbed the kitchen knife deeper, and also used the force of sucking, stirring the woman's abdomen. Shan Yu shouted towards the kitchen knife. Yaya, bite her. A little girl's soul floated out of the kitchen knife. After receiving the order, she opened her mouth and bit the woman's shoulder without saying a word. Ah! The woman rolled out of bed in severe pain. Shan Yu pulled out the kitchen knife and ignored the woman, but went to check on the boy. At some point, the boy had closed his eyes tightly, his face was a little pale, and he seemed to be struggling with something. "Why aren't you awake yet?" Shan Yu rolled up the boy's body with a thin quilt, then picked him up with both hands and left the bed in the room. "Hey, Gucci, wake up!" Shan Yu tried to shout again, but there was no response. Strange. What happened? Why can't he wake up despite caring about him? Ho ho. At this time, the woman who had taken off her disguise and turned into a monster roughly shook Yaya away and rushed towards Shan Yu. Come again. Shan Yu hurriedly dodged, and then threw out a talisman-like prop. When it hit the monster, the talisman immediately shot out a thunder and lightning, and the monster screamed. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Shan Yu put Yaya back into the kitchen knife, hugged the boy and fled the room. After running all the way outside, Shan Yugong thought she could breathe a sigh of relief, but when she met another fantasy figure outside the villa, her fantasy was completely shattered. Those fantasy characters also turned into demented monsters, and when they saw Shan Yu, they would chase after him. Maybe they were all coming for the boy. With no other choice, Shan Yu continued to escape with his people. Just as Shan Yu was shaking off several waves of monsters, her panel popped out at this moment. "The target for killing has appeared, please resolve it as soon as possible." "The target for killing has appeared, please resolve it as soon as possible." "The target for killing has appeared, please resolve it as soon as possible." Shan Yu slowly stopped and looked down at the boy he was holding. Shan Yu can now contact Gucci, which means she could just kill someone. Then this illusion will be destroyed directly. And she herself can directly play this round of dungeons and get generous rewards. Shan Yu's panel continued to urge her, and even repeated the reward content for successful mission several times, which was nakedly tempting her. Tisk, it's so noisy. Shan Yu turned off the panel directly and continued to escape with others. "Gucci, wake up. If you don't wake up within 3 seconds, I will throw you away." Favors are really the most troublesome. Shan Yu kept threatening, but failed to wake up the boy. Although Shan Yu didn't want to admit it, in the previous 2 rounds of dungeons, no matter whether Gucci had any purpose, he had helped him after all, and he could be regarded as owing a favor. Shan Yu never thinks that he is a good person. Before she was 18 years old, she killed her biological father with her own hands and sent her biological mother to prison. After turning 18, she ruined her former adoptive parents' family. But there are still some bottom lines and principles that must be in place. Otherwise, there is no difference between her and an uncivilized beast. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a Bug in a Survival Game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 618. After Shan Yu found her hiding spot for the 7th time and was discovered by a fantasy monster in less than 2 minutes and escaped, she realized that there was probably some kind of surveillance or positioning in this fantasy. Now the protagonist of the illusion, Gucci, is not yet awake and cannot break the illusion. The dominance of the illusion is in the hands of these illusion monsters. It is very easy to find the 2 of them. Is this the 9-star copy? It's too difficult to deal with. Shan Yu has not played a few rounds of dungeons, and has not accumulated much strength. Now that he has come to the 9-star dungeon, it is considered good to be able to survive and protect himself. No, we have to find a way to wake up Gucci. Only when Gucci wakes up can he get rid of this illusion. When Shan Yu found another hiding spot, he quickly sat down to rest, and then looked at the unconscious boy. 1 second, 2 seconds, Shan Yu became in trouble. How about a slap to wake him up? Shan Yu actually stretched out his palm and made a gesture on the boy's face. Well, facing such a soft little face, Shan Yu really couldn't do anything. Shan Yu couldn't help but complain, "Why did you look so cute when you were young? When he grew up, he looked crooked." Unable to slap him, Shan Yu could only grab the boy's shoulders and shake him hard. "Wake up, wake up, wake up." During the shaking process, Shan Yu always paid attention to the boy's condition and found that the latter kept his little face wrinkled, looking very uneasy and painful, and seemed to be struggling. Is it possible? An idea came to Shan Yu's mind. She picked up the boy, leaned close to his ear, and whispered softly, "Gucci, this is all fake, it's all over, just open your eyes, okay?" "Fake?" The boy with his eyes closed suddenly murmured. Shan Yu was stunned for a moment, and then quickly responded, "Yes. It's all fake. We are in a dungeon, remember? In a dungeon of nightmare maze." Under Shan Yu's fixed gaze, the boy's eyelashes trembled slightly, and he finally slowly opened his eyes. In his eyes, the ignorance and innocence of a child disappeared. "Gucci," Shan Yu asked tentatively, "are you awake?" The boy lowered his head and looked at his current situation. He had turned into a child, and he had nothing to wear? Still being held. The boy's face turned red instantly, and he bit his lip unconsciously. "You, put me down." "Huh? Oh." When Shan Yu saw the boy's reaction, he immediately knew that the latter had woken up. "Gucci, why haven't you changed back yet?" Shan Yu let go, and the boy hugged the quilt tightly, wrapping himself tightly, leaving only half of his head exposed. "If this changes back, ahem, there should be no need to be naked." "I don't know," a muffled voice came from inside the quilt. "Maybe the illusion has not been broken." Shan Yu raised a possibility, and then reached out and poked the rolled up quilt. "Hey, now that you are awake, you can break this illusion. I directly killed those fantasy characters and came out. Let's go find those fantasy characters now." Shan Yu didn't mention Gucci's fantasy story at all. Everyone has some dark history, some unbearable past events, which they don't want anyone to know about, and they don't need sympathy more than ridicule. What Shan Yu could do was just deliberately ignore this problem. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 619. Gucci, who had been huddled in the quilt, suddenly threw away the quilt. At this time, he was wearing a men's jacket. Because of his height, this coat can cover his entire body, but his hands are too short and his sleeves are much longer. When the hood on the coat comes down, it almost covers the upper half of Gu's face. "Well, you're pretty good." Shan Yu was a little surprised. She thought Gucci was embarrassed, but she didn't know that he had secretly put on a coat. Gucci did not prepare children's clothes in his inventory, no normal person would prepare them, so now he can only wear a coat to cover himself. "Ho ho." Hearing this familiar voice, Shan Yu's expression changed. Here we go again. They were now on the third floor of a residential building. Listening to the sounds outside, the fantasy monsters should have found themselves in front of the door. Shan Yu subconsciously wanted to take Gucci away and run away, but the latter dodged him. "What are you doing?" Gucci took a few steps back. "Run, wait a minute, can you use the props now?" Shan Yu reacted slowly. Now that Gucci is awake, maybe the latter has the ability to deal with these fantasy monsters, and this is Gucci's fantasy. Gucci glanced at her. Nonsense. Stupid. Just a second ago, this woman had sworn to him that she would kill the illusory monster, but now when they met her, she was so cowardly that she just wanted to escape. "Ahem, you're awesome, then come on." Shan Yu turned around and hid behind Gucci, who was now less than his waist. So Shan Yu leaned against the wall, folded his arms and sat waiting for Gucci's performance. But Goose. Half a minute later. Shan Yu suppressed a smile. "No. Gucci, I just asked, Do you need my help? Need not. The half-grown boy looked slightly annoyed. His two short hands were pulling at the cuffs that were too long, trying to stretch out his hands. However, after trying several times, the cuffs of the coat seemed to be against Gucci and kept getting in the way. He reached out his hand. After wasting this little time, the fantasy monster outside had already reached the top of the stairs. Shan Yu took a few steps forward, squatted down, and helped Gu fold up his sleeves. Don't be in a hurry, I'm still in a hurry to save my life. After finishing it, Shan Yu quickly stood up, walked away, and then said with a smile, Gujuyi, come on. Gucci didn't say anything, but he was obviously suffocating as he walked towards the phantom monsters, making noises without looking back. Ho ho ho. 5 minutes later, the sound of fighting outside disappeared. Shan Yu went out and found the corpse of the monster cut into pieces on the ground, while Gucci stood in the middle with bare feet, holding an overly long coat in his two short hands, with a cold expression on his face. These illusion monsters were completely cold, but there was no sign of the illusion being broken. However, Shan Yu did not find Chu Xinyu among the monster heads present. At this time, Shan Yu found a pair of children's shoes not far away. Judging from the size, they should be suitable for Gucci now, so he walked over and bent down to pick them up. Hey, you put on your shoes first, and then we. Just as Shan Yu put the shoes in front of Gucci's eyes, the latter suddenly said, I won't wear them. Why? Dirty Gucci was very disgusted, even though he knew that this was an illusion and no one might have passed through it. Shan Yu was a little confused. Your feet are not dirty if you are barefoot. Anyway, don't wear anything, and leave. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 620. Okay, you are Gujuyi and you have the final say. Shan Yu only cared a little bit because Gucci was now a soft child. Anyway, she was not naked. Foot. The two people who came out looked at the lonely fantasy space. For a moment, they didn't know where to go. Shan Yu suggested, how about we go back and look for it? What Shan Yu wanted to say was Gucci's home in the fantasy world. Gucci tightened his grip on his coat, which was dragging the floor because it was too long. He tied a belt around his waist to barely stabilize it. With their goal in mind, the two of them didn't stay any longer and went straight to the original small villa. When the two of them arrived at the door of the small villa, they met Chu Xinyu, who had returned to her adult form. The first time Chu Xinyu saw Gucci, a gentle smile appeared on her face, and she opened her arms. Xiao Qi, you sneaked out again. Come, go home with your mother. Shan Yu didn't say anything. She turned her head and glanced at Gucci. The latter's eyes were cold and he seemed to have no reaction. But in less than 2 seconds, several thin transparent threads instantly penetrated the body of Chu Xinyu. The head, arms, legs, were all cut off. Suddenly, the stability of the illusion was broken, and the space began to become distorted, and a mirror door appeared in front of the two of them. You can go out now. Shan Yu pointed at the mirror door. The two of them walked into the mirror door one after the other. Black forest edge. A mirror door opened, and immediately, two figures walked out of it. 2 seconds later. Puff. Shan Yu couldn't help but burst out laughing, but looking back at Gucci, his expression was dull and incomprehensible. Because, even after leaving that illusion, Gucci still hasn't changed back. What's going on? Shan Yu asked after finishing laughing. Gucci was very depressed. How do I know? What went wrong? Perhaps, if you figure out this nightmare maze, you can change back, Shan Yu said seriously. Nonsense, Gucci said coldly. All fools know it, but the problem is how to figure it out. Are you being criticized? Shan Yu wasn't angry at all. Why was she angry with the child? Are we still in the maze? Is this a new illusion? Or is it the true interior of the maze? Shan Yu changed the subject. Gucci suddenly stretched out his hand and pointed to a place outside the forest. There is fire there. Go and have a look. Gucci was the first to start, walking in that direction. When the two got closer, they found that this was an older hotel. There were lanterns hanging on the left and right sides of the hotel door, and the firelight Gucci saw was from the lanterns. The wooden door of the hotel was half open, and there was a faint white light inside. Shan Yu, want to go in? There is a hotel in the wild, and it is still in a maze. It is a bit weird no matter how you look at it, but there is no better place to go now. Let's go. Gucci spat out one word and walked directly into the hotel. Seeing this, Shan Yu had no choice but to follow. Inside the hotel, in front of the counter, an old man wearing glasses was reading books. Hearing the movement at the door, he asked without raising his head. Stay in a hotel or eat? 500 for hotel stay and 200 for food. Gucci threw a gold bar directly over. When the old man saw that it was a gold bar, he quickly put it into his pocket. Gucci, 2 rooms. 2 guests, please follow me. The old man closed the book and walked out of the counter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 621. The second floor of the hotel. The old man took the two of them to rooms 205 and 206. Because of the gold bars, he became a little more warm and friendly. Guest, are you satisfied? Both rooms had the same layout and decoration. Gucci looked at the cleanliness of the room and found that it was pretty good, so he sent the old man away without thinking too much. You live in room 206. The soundproofing of this house is not very good. If anything happens, just call. Good. After tossing in 2 illusions in a row, Shan Yu's energy was not so full. If there was nothing wrong with the hotel, he could take a break. Shan Yu was just about to leave when she saw Gucci's panel pop out. The latter's eyes stayed on the panel for several seconds before closing it. In this case, could it be that Gucci also received the mission? Could it be a kill mission? Shan Yu felt a chill in his heart. What else do you want? Seeing that Shan Yu hadn't left, Gucci frowned and asked. No, it's okay. Grass. She should have left immediately the moment the panel appeared. Who knows if Gucci has already received the killing mission. Gucci watched Shan Yu walk into room 206. After the door closed, Gucci looked away, and then opened the panel again, which still retained the panel information he received. Dear player, congratulations on triggering the random mission. Killing and guarding what you obtained is Guardian. Guardian mission, from now on, the first person you meet will become your guardian. Mission content, walk out of the nightmare maze alive with him. Task reward, immediately clear this round of copies and obtain a gold medal career, 500,000 game coins, 100,000 experience points, add 100 free attribute points, random props 10, and lottery opportunities 200. Guardian Creed, in this vast world, you will always meet some precious people on the long journey, some heart-tugging things, perhaps, the beauty glimpsed inadvertently will later become a habitual care people. Always I need some reasons to live meaningfully. Ah. Guard. Boring. Gucci closed the panel and turned back to the room. In room 206. Shan Yu was a little restless. Considering that guy, you shouldn't repay kindness with hatred, right? I haven't even done anything to him. But if Gucci really wanted to attack her, his resistance seemed a bit unnecessary, and he wouldn't have much chance to escape. After all, the former was much stronger than him. Speaking of which, the rewards for killing missions are so generous that the panel system has not considered it. If the killer and the target of the killing make an appointment together, they will be rewarded 50 to 50 points afterwards. Then the punishment for failing to clear a copy seems to be insignificant. Already. After thinking about it, Shan Yu also felt a little moved. How about discussing it with Gucci? I'll be more generous, give him 6 or 4 points, and just ask for a 4 for yourself. But considering that nature, even if you are acting, you can't accept being killed, right? Will Gucci's mission be to kill? Then if he comes to kill me, it's okay to be 64 points afterward. The more Shan Yu thought about it, the more feasible it became. Unknowingly, Shan Yu felt faintly sleepy, and his eyelids began to twitch up and down. Shan Yu sat on the edge of the bed in the room, took out the blood-stained kitchen knife from the inventory, and called out Yaya inside. Yaya, sister, take a nap for a while, and you can help her keep vigil. Yaya nodded obediently. After giving the instructions, Shan Yu could no longer hold on and fell on the bed. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 622. Somewhere in the maze. A man and a woman walk together. Qian, don't worry, I will definitely protect you. Seeing that the woman still looked frightened, the man comforted her. The woman slowly approached the man's back, and finally her whole body seemed to be pressed into him, her voice trembling, "Thank you, I'm not so scared anymore." The man suddenly looked proud as his girlfriend relied on him like this. Hey, this guardian mission isn't bad. Not only can you get rewards easily, but you can also enjoy the support of your originally lonely girlfriend. While the man was feeling triumphant, suddenly he felt a stinging pain in his back. He immediately wanted to turn around, but he was tightly held by the lovable woman behind him. And at some point, the woman had a dagger in her hand, and half of the blade pierced the man's back of the heart. "I'm sorry." The woman's head gently rested on the man's ear and she murmured, You. Blood continued to flow from the corner of the man's mouth, his pupils shrank suddenly, and he was shocked. Why? After the man completely lost his breath, the woman let go of the man's body and let him fall to the ground. Ha, I succeeded. The woman's hands were covered with blood. She had killed her boyfriend, but she didn't care and looked crazy. 5 million game coins. Soon, I can redeem the dream repair agent. The woman was caught up in her fantasy of a better future, unaware that at the feet behind her, a black shadow was slowly approaching. Fantasy world. A large truck and 2 vans were parked next to a road in a deserted area. Next to the large truck, several men were smoking cigarettes out of boredom. In the nearby woods, from time to time, the sounds of men beating and scolding and girls crying could be heard. Are you still running? Are you still running? After a while, the girl in the woods was brought back to the car. In the compartment of the large truck, there were more than a dozen young girls, their faces full of fear and helplessness. The carriage was locked, and several men got on board one after another. At this time, Shan Yu's figure slowly walked out from the edge of the grove. Shan Yu deliberately approached those cars, but the men in the cars were busy with what they were doing and did not see Shan Yu at all. An illusion again. Shan Yu called softly, Yaya, but there was no response. Shan Yu frowned slightly. Why couldn't he feel the existence of the inventory and Yaya at all? What is this going to do? These people don't seem to be able to see themselves. Shan Yu slowly remembered that she had fallen asleep in the hotel. Could it be that for this reason, she entered the illusion again? It's really hard to guard against. The current situation, tisk, I seem to have remembered it a little bit. Shan Yu crossed his arms over his chest, with a hint of interest in his eyes. Shan Yu watched helplessly as several cars started and left. In front of my eyes, the picture changed. The same few cars were now parked in front of the entrance of a small village in a remote mountainous area. In front of the village entrance. After a man negotiated with the village chief, the 5 girls with the most outstanding looks were left behind. And Shan Yu, who seemed like an outsider, watched this scene with a smile from beginning to end. Her eyes were terrifyingly calm, like a pool of stagnant water, without any fluctuations. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 623. Through a series of campaigns, the future fate of 5 girls was determined, and they were taken home by 5 different men. The scene changes. In front of me, there is a brick house with a front and backyard. There is a small kitchen in the front yard. Chickens, ducks, and pigs are raised in pens. There is a only toilet and cellar in the backyard, and a large area is designated to grow vegetables. The most beautiful girl was brought back here by a young man of about 30 years old, and then she was imprisoned directly in the small woodshed. Son, how much food did this cost? Dad, not much, that is. Isn't that much? The old man, who had been there before, suddenly raised his voice. I could have brought back 3 of them at this price back then. You spendthrift. Dad, I just like this. Anyway, I can't back out. The young man frowned. No matter what, Dad, I will give you a few days as a way of honoring you. That's what you said, don't go back on your word. Outside the house, the sound of 2 people talking could be heard intermittently. The girl sat on a pile of pigweed, hugging herself tightly. She was alone at the moment, and her eyes couldn't help showing anxiety and fear. The girl recalled the young man outside the door. When he brought her back, the young man looked at her with a look that was a little familiar, eerily familiar, just like the man who called him a loser after being drunk. In the woodshed, Shan Yu stood quietly in the corner, taking in all the changes in the girl's expression, with the smile still hanging on his lips. Are you scared? Shan Yu spoke slowly, as if he was asking the girl, but the latter couldn't hear her at all, because this was just an illusion. It's a pity that no one will come to save you. Are you still harboring illusions at this time? The door of the woodshed was opened, and a woman with dark yellow skin and an unusually old look walked in holding a quilt. Her eyes were hollow and numb, and she was only wearing a sack. On the exposed skin, you can clearly see some scars from old injuries, which looks extremely hideous. She threw the quilt in front of the girl expressionlessly, turned around and left the woodshed, locking the wooden door. For half a day, the girl was feeling uneasy. Until night falls. The door of the woodshed was opened again, and this time the young man from the daytime walked in. The young man was holding a piece of red cloth in his hand. When he saw the girl on the haystack, he couldn't help but smile. Daughter-in-law, you've been waiting for a long time. Come on, I'm here to be shy with you as my husband, ha ha ha. The young man covered the girl's head with the red cloth, and the latter pulled it off without thinking. The girl is no longer a 3-year-old child. She knows what this wife means. At this moment, the remaining illusion in her heart is completely shattered. The moment the girl pulled off the red cloth, the young man's face changed drastically, and the only trace of tenderness disappeared. He waved his hand and slapped the girl mercilessly. Snapped. The right side of the girl's face quickly became red and swollen. This was like a fuse. The young man seemed to be addicted. He grabbed the girl's long hair with one hand, forcing the latter to raise her head, and fanned out vigorously with the other hand. Ah, get away. The girl kept struggling, but the disparity in strength between men and women was too great, and the girl's desperate struggles were all in vain. You bitch. You rebelled against me, didn't you? Dad is indeed right. Women should clean up first. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuan-Ke. Chapter 624. The girl was beaten for half the night. In the second half of the night, The young man was tired from the beating and his good mood was gone, so he left the woodshed. The girl hugged her body and buried her head in the hay. The tears she had been holding on for a long time finally flowed out, but this was just the beginning. The next day, the girl was put into a pig pen. The smelly environment made the girl feel uncomfortable. She had to eat 3 meals a day in the pig pen, eating with the pigs. The 2 men in this family would beat and scold the girl and another woman if anything went wrong. The girl would still resist and then be beaten even harder, but the woman was used to it. When she was beaten, she remained motionless without any resistance. After 7 consecutive days, the girl was almost out of shape and had many bruises on her body. And just before the sun went down, the girl was taken out of the pigsty and suddenly allowed to eat. The sudden change in attitude made the girl a little confused and secretly wary. But facing a table full of normal people eating, the girl lost her composure, reached out and grabbed the food on the table and started eating. That night, the girl returned to the woodshed again. The girl was lying on the haystack. Slowly, her vision became blurred and her head began to feel dizzy. Just when the girl was about to lose consciousness, the young man and the woman came in. The woman was holding a bundle of hemp rope in her hands, and without saying a word, she went over and tied the girl's hands. The girl wanted to struggle, but was horrified to find that her whole body was limp and she couldn't exert any strength. By the time the girl realized that there might be something wrong with tonight's meal, it was already too late. Go out. After seeing the woman doing something good, the young man asked her to leave. After the woman closed the door, the young man suddenly revealed his true colors, smiling obscenely. Now, you should be honest. Get away, get away. After a night, the energetic young people went out to work. The door of the small woodshed was quietly pushed open, and a woman came in holding a basin and a set of women's clothes. Regarding the situation inside, the woman looked unsurprised and started to deal with the scene. For more than half a month, every night, the candle in the small woodshed burned for most of the night before going out. When the 1-month period ended, the girl who stayed at this home was put into a sack by a strange man and carried away to the next home. So, the cycle repeats. 1 year, 2 years, of the original 5 girls, only the most beautiful one remains. Soon, a batch of new goods began to arrive in the village. As old, the girl was gradually forgotten. From beginning to end, Shan Yu watched all this calmly like an outsider. After an unknown amount of time, everything around him stopped. Continue, why don't you continue? Shan Yu saw that the illusion had stopped and shouted to the empty front. Shan Yu's tone was slightly ridiculing. Why don't you continue? The fun will come later. For example, the entire village was drugged and then burned alive while having sweet dreams. There are 257 people in the whole village, but no one survived. It's really gratifying. The poor and honest villagers died, but the vicious murderer who killed them took away the only ox cart in the village, several bags of grain, and most of the savings, and finally walked away. Tisk tisk, what a bad guy. Being a bug in a survival game. Author, Kuanke. Chapter 625. The words just fell. As the peaceful village in front of Shan Yu turned from day to night, a fire suddenly broke out. From the sea of fire, burned and disfigured corpses crawled out. They all surrounded Shan Yu's direction, and roars sounded, as if they were going to tear her into pieces. Shan Yu stood firmly on the spot, without any fear on his face. That's it? Are you looking down on me too much? Back then, I was able to kill you all, but now, do you still think I'm afraid of you, a bunch of trash that has turned into ashes? Oh, that's right. Shan Yu blinked her beautiful eyes. I would also like to thank you for showing up. After all, if you only massacre a village once, how can you relieve your anger? Roar. More than 200 monsters rushed towards Shan Yu. Shan Yu stared at these monsters calmly and said to himself, it's just a fantasy. If I'm not wrong, as long as the protagonist of the fantasy is not affected, nothing in the fantasy can be done to the protagonist. Shan Yu didn't even blink, watching the monsters pass through him one after another, unable to hurt him at all. And you guys, please die again. In hotel room 206. The illusion is shattered. On the bed, Shan Yu, who had been unconscious, suddenly woke up. Elder sister. Yaya pounced on Shan Yu, with a nervous but happy face. Sister, I just realized something was wrong and wanted to wake her up, but I couldn't. Seeing himself back in the hotel room, Shan Yu breathed a sigh of relief in his heart. It's okay, I'm out. Shan Yu reached out and rubbed Yaya's little head. At this time, Shan Yu's panel popped out. Main mission, the second day of the nightmare maze, to be refreshed. This second illusion, does it mean the second level? Shan Yu turned it off after reading the information on the panel. Shan Yu was just about to lie down on the bed when he suddenly thought of Gucci next door. That guy should have entered the illusion now, right? Is he okay? But that guy almost overturned in the last illusion, and now he's a kid again. Shan Yu looked down at Yaya in his arms, hesitated for a moment, and decided to take a look at Gucci's condition. Shan Yu put Yaya back into the kitchen knife, held the handle of the kitchen knife with his bare hands, and walked out of room 206. Arriving at room 205, Shan Yu first raised his hand and knocked on the door. Gucci? Are you there? After calling a few times, there was no movement in the room. Shan Yu decisively broke the door lock with a kitchen knife and kicked in. Holy crap! What the hell? On the ceiling, a big black face opened its bloody mouth, as if it was sucking something. On the bed directly below, Gucci was lying on it, eyes closed, knowing nothing. Sister, that weird thing is sucking some of the air from Big Brother, Yaya reminded Shan Yu in the kitchen knife. Guess. Shan Yu was confused, how could he be angry? Seeing someone coming, the big black face disappeared in an instant. Leaving, Shan Yu breathed a sigh of relief, but just when she wanted to approach Gucci, she stopped abruptly. Around Gucci, there were silk threads that were as transparent as sharp edges. Shan Yu remembered that this kind of silk thread was Gucci's prop. Why did you put them here? But it seems like you can't deal with that weird thing sucking his breath, right? Shan Yu looked at Gucci, who was still unconscious on the bed, and then looked back at the threads, feeling a little headache. How can she go over and wake people up?